All right, welcome back to Unit 2. So tonight we're going to look at comparing and ordering real numbers. And if you remember from the videos from the night before last, real numbers are any numbers that we have ever done in mathematics. Negative, positive, square roots, non-perfect squares. And we're going to look at real numbers today and comparing and ordering real numbers. Okay, so this is the first part of our notes, the first section on the top. We're going to write the numbers in ascending order. So if you remember from our notes, I think on the first set of notes, the word ascending means from least to greatest, so from small to big. So since all of these numbers are in different forms, 0 is in decimal form, negative square root of 2, square root of 5 are in radical form, and 13 over 4 is in fraction form, we need to change these all to decimals so that we can compare them. So we're not going to do anything to 0 because 0 is just 0, so we're going to leave 0 alone. Negative square root of 2, so we need to fix that one. So we know our answer is going to be negative. The square root of 2 is between the square root of 1 and the square root of 4. The square root of 1 is 1 and the square root of 4 is 2. This is too big. So we know the square root of 2 is going to be 1 point something. And since it's about halfway between 1 and 4, not quite, we're going to say the square root of 2 is about 1.4. And since there's a negative on the outside, it's a negative 1.4. The square root of 5, not a perfect square. The square root of 5 is between the square root of 4 and the square root of 9. The square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 9 is 3. That's too big, so we know this is 2 point something. And so we can say it's, not quite halfway between 4 and 9, so call this 2.2. And finally, 13 over 4, we need to change that to a decimal. So the top dog gets the house, so 13 goes on the inside. We're going to divide that by 4. 4 goes into 13 3 times, that's 12. Bring up our decimal. Bring down the 0. 4 goes into 10 2 times, and we can stop right about there. So it's about, actually we can do 8, and then 4 goes into 25 times. So 13 over 4 is 3.25. So we want to put these in ascending order, so that means least to greatest. So we have to look at these numbers and see which one is the smallest. And we have a negative number right here, so it's the only negative number, and negative numbers are usually the smallest, definitely less than 0. So our smallest number in this case is negative 1.4. So negative 1.4, we're done with that one, and that was originally the negative square root of 2. Next we have 0, 2.2, and 3.25. 0 is smaller, so that's our next number, and that was its original form. So we're done with that one. Then we have 2.2 and 3.25. So again, think of money. 2 is less than 3. So 2.2 is our next one. And its original form was the square root of 5. And then last we have 3.25, and its original form was 13 over 4. So this is the list of our numbers from least to greatest. So we need to make sure that we change them all to decimal form so we can compare them. Okay, so we have another list of numbers here, and it's asking which list shows the numbers in an increasing order. So again, from least to greatest. So let me make this a little bigger so we can see it. So if you notice, we have some decimal numbers in here. Whoops. Sorry about that. We have some decimal numbers in here, so we know that all 4 sets of numbers are the same. So we know that we have to have negative numbers first. So we have a negative here, so that might work. We'll check it out. There's no negative here, so that eliminates this one. The square root of 7 is positive. We know our negative numbers are smaller, so that eliminates this one. So let's go ahead and look at letter A. Is negative 0.5, 5/10 less than 1.5? And the answer to that is yes. Is 1.5 less than negative 2? And the answer to that is no. So this part right here is wrong, because negative 1.5 is greater than, 1.5 is greater than 2, so that knocks this one out. So our answer must be C. But let's just double check to make sure we're right. If we're on the number line, negative 2 comes first, and remember, the bigger the negative looks, the smaller it is. Negative 0.75, negative 0.5, 1.5, and the square root of 7. So even if you didn't know right off what the square root of 7 was, you know that these numbers are in order and that these numbers are not. So let's take a look at how that's going to work on a number line. So below we have the number line from negative 8 to positive 8, and we have the numbers 0 and negative 0 and 2/10, 7/10, negative 1, the square root of 2, and negative 4. So let's do the easy ones first. Let's do negative 1, and negative 1 is right here, and negative 4, and negative 4 is right here. So negative 0.2 is already in decimal form, so we're going to leave that one alone. I'm just going to rewrite it. 7/10 can be written as 0.7. And the square root of 2 we did on the beginning of the notes, and that was about 1.4. So let's do 1.4 first. We know that 1.4, it's positive. It's somewhere between 1 and 2. 1.5 is right about here, so 1.4 is probably a little bit to the left of that. So 1.4 we'll put right about here. And that's the number 1.4, which is the square root of 2. So we are done with that one. Let's go ahead and do 0 and 7/10. So we know 0 and 7/10, it's 70 cents, so it's not bigger than 1. We know that 0.5 is right about here, so 0 and 7/10 needs to be right about there. So a little bit closer to the 1. That one is 0.7. In our original form, it was 7/10. So we are done with that one. And last but not least, we have to look at negative 0 and 2/10. So we know our negative numbers are back here. There's no whole number here, so this number has to be between 0 and negative 1. And it's really small, so negative 0.5 is right about here. We want to kind of squeeze it over there. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm just going to draw a dot and then an arrow, negative 0.2. So we've just put our numbers in order from least to greatest, even though we may not have realized it. So our smallest number is negative 4, then comes negative 1, then comes negative 0.2, next is 7/10, and the largest number on here is the square root of 2. Okay, now it's your turn to practice what we know, or what we just did. So in question number 1, these can go on the bottom of your notes or on the back. In question number 1, which set below is ordered from least to greatest, so from smallest to largest. So we have the square root of 27, 5 and 7/9, and 4.5. So 4.5 is already a decimal, so we're going to leave it alone. I'm just going to line them up over here. 5 and 7/9 we know is going to be 5 point something. 7/9 as a decimal is 0.7 repeating. And then finally, the square root of 27 is between the square root of 25 and the square root of 36. The square root of 25 is 5, the square root of 36 is 6. So the square root of 27 is 6 point something. 27 is closer than 25, so we'll try 6.2. So again, This is the square root of 27. This was 5 7/9. So look at this set of numbers to order them from least to greatest. And then number 2 is the square root of 2 rational or irrational. Remember, rational numbers can be written as fractions. Irrational numbers cannot be written as fractions. So again, record these answers on the bottom or the back of your notes page. Have a good night.